Apologies for being late. It happens. Sometimes things don't go off on time, but that's okay. We're here now. It's the Hey, it's Rico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball podcast presented by Rotofanatic.com. And today it's an entirely Rotofanatic-centric focused show with three dudes who are owners, runners, creators, and overall overlords of Rotofanatic.com. It's me, MJ Govier, G-O-V and Victor IER on Twitter. Paul Mammino, P Mammino Fantasy. There's two M's in there. Two M's in the middle, one M at the beginning, and then an N to close it out. And of course, Crosby Spencer, at Crosby Spencer. Standard spelling, not Bobby Crosby, though. Remember Bobby Crosby? That was a good time, right, Crosby?
I do not know who Bobby Crosby is. Who is that?
You don't remember him for the Oakland Athletics? Come on, shortstop.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I knew you would. I was trying to connect with your
shortstop.
Older age
Yeah.
But Crosby Spencer numerical 1 on Twitter. So yes, it's us three tonight. Deary, he had a flood. We had a hell of a flood here over the weekend. So fortunately, Deary's basement is flooded, and I feel bad for him. I hope everything goes well down there. It's been a tough road, but somehow we played softball on Sunday. So I don't know how we got that in. It was actually sunny. It's very strange weather here. But you're not here for the weather. You're here for the information. We're going to talk about a bunch of different stuff today with Paul and Crosby. We'll do our catch of the day, and we'll talk about the humidor and the impact it's had around various stadiums in Major League Baseball. Crosby's got some interesting numbers. We'll talk about the Data Monster, which is our Rotofanatic specialty tool that Paul basically created. All credit to Paul Mammino, the master. And it can be of use on the show. I'm going to start doing a better job of that. And this is just a reminder, of course. And we'll play Name That Runner-Up Fab Bid and maybe a couple other things along the way. But first, don't forget to go to Rotofanatic.com and check out Phil Goyette's Climbing the Rookie Ladder. Phil Goyette knows great stuff about prospects. He knows prospects very, very well. And so does Michael Richards. We have two guys at Rotofanatic that are excellent prospect dudes. But Phil does his rookie ladder with pitchers and hitters, reminds you, updates you on who's trending upwards and who's going down. But don't worry, because when you're talking prospects, odds are somebody's going to go back up, and they'll probably go back down again. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct.
Especially
it's prospects. It's chaos, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. And everybody loves them, especially the pitching ones. I know you've talked about it a few times, the Matt Manning obsession the past couple weeks. Or I guess 2 weeks. It's been brutal.
Could have called that one against Cleveland yesterday. In fact, I should have bet all my life savings on it. I knew it was coming. It was either that start or the following start. He was going to implode because he's not striking out anybody. Nothing is fooling any hitters. So I should have known better, but I'm not a very good gambler either. Anyways, yeah, Matt Manning's a fun prospect. Also, me and Phil are going to start doing a quick prospect check-in on Mondays. It'll be like a 15-minute weekly check-in at the beginning of the week that I'll do on this feed. We'll talk about prospects he likes, prospects he's seen something from, just so you can have kind of a taste of that. Little taste on Mondays, probably starting after 4th of July. All right, that's enough of that crap. Paul Mammino. Paul, we have not had you on the show in a minute since you and Crosby are on... Was that the beginning of the season?
I was going to say, it was either right at the beginning or right before, right? I don't remember exactly.
I feel like it was April for sure.
Mid-March.
Was it March?
Yep.
Look at that. Crosby's
well, shit. Okay, so what, Paul? What's happened since then? First off, in your life, are you okay? You gonna be all right? How you feeling?
Doing great, man. Working. That's really all I do. Going away this weekend for 4th of July. I'm kind of looking forward to that, but. Nothing else major going on with me.
Where are you going?
Ocean City, Maryland, with a few friends for the weekend.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so
former Marylander here. I know exactly what goes on there, Paul, you sneaky devil. That's Party Palace. That's what that is. And that's also a shitload of people, and it's going to be hot as fuck.
It is really, really hot here right now. It is brutal here. I know it is in a lot of the country, but it is not fun here right now, so...
Yeah, if it's hot as fuck here, then I'm sure it's hot as fuck over there because it shouldn't be that hot here overall in Michigan. Yeah. But Ocean City's a great time. I never actually truly went there, oddly enough. I just did spend a lot of time on the Eastern Shore when I lived in Maryland, and I wish I had. But I know you'll have a great time. That's very cool. And Crosby is always cooking great food and having good times on the weekend. So I assume you're going to have yourself a wonderful 4th of July holiday.
Absolutely. Going to get some hot dogs flown in. Should be here any day coming in from Syracuse. Little Hoffman hot dogs.
Hot dogs are flying in.
Yeah, indeed. And Gonna make those up, have a nice barbecue, and probably some ribs, and do the whole 4th of July cookout type theme weekend. So yeah, it should be a good time.
That sounds great, man. And I'm sure we'll see some pictures in the Slack because Crosby is known for his gorgeous pictures of tasty treats. And I'm not talking like Ritz crackers. I'm talking full-on meals, multi-course meals, a lot of meats involved, which I am always a fan of. I love meats, Crosby. So I appreciate the meats that you share with us online.
I'm happy to share my meat with you anytime.
I knew it. I knew it was that easy. That's how it works, folks.
That one is long gone.
All right, so Rotofanatic.com is a place where we do business. Where are we right now, Paul? How do you feel about what we're doing? What are we offering? What's coming up soon? Is there anything we can look forward to in the near future on Rotofanatic.com?
Yeah, I mean, well, every week we have a couple things that always kind of come out on the weekends. Mike Carter's great with his closing remarks. Davey puts a ton of work into the infirmary report.
Yeah, get ready for
Crosby and
those.
I have kind of worked together on doing some schedule factor stuff that I think that's one of the things that we need to start pushing a little bit more, because that stuff is really cool and there's some really interesting data in there that I think could really help people when setting lineups and adding players and things like that. I think that's one of our more underappreciated aspects of the site.
Damn right. I always push the schedule factors every weekend, and I do the Sunday, prep show, I guess. I call it Fab and Streamers. I've been calling it the Week 14 prep last week, whatever I feel like calling it. But the point is, the schedule factors are always a key part of it. It breaks down the schedules, the advantages, how many games teams have, all these little things that will be a essential part of your prep for the week to come.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we were talking about before the show. We don't do a great job of marketing our stuff. And I think that's one of the places that we can really give some people something different than what they're used to seeing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we do our best here. We keep trying. I know there's some diehard Rotofanatic people, but there's so many of you that are still not accessing this great content. And Crosby and these two guys I'm having on here, Crosby and Paul, they are the wizards. They really know this shit in and out. And they know more than some of us do. Frankly, more than I know when it comes to really specific, detailed data that goes inside what players are doing and can give you that edge. Because what everybody wants to know on Twitter, every time they ask an analyst, they ask myself, hey, who do you like rest of the season, blah, blah, or blah, blah. And anybody could give you their gut feeling. We can all do that. Roto gut, Vlad Sedler's already mastered that in a sense. And we all have our guts to go on. Some of ours are bigger than others, right, Crosby? But I will tell you this. Yeah. But in the end, you need that extra piece of data. And that's what we try to do at Rotofanatic.com. So I'm hoping you guys catch on to that. If you haven't shared it with your friends, your pals, your friends, your loved ones, please do so. Crosby, what was the original focus, and what are you trying to share with people on schedule factors when you put it out every Saturday?
I just want to give people something a little bit different as far as, when you look at the ballpark factors, and you're making your lineup, you want to be able to tell, okay, what are my guys' matchups this week as far as what kind of environments they're hitting in, what kind of environments they're pitching in. If it matters on a season, every week is basically just 1/27th of the season, and you're playing 27 little micro seasons. And yes, you're going to have your stud pitchers and your stud hitters that are in there every week, but you might have, 3 to 6 guys a week that you're kind of going in and out, and especially deciding on pitching. And those little extra edges on, seeing what their pitching and hitting environments are going to be for that week. This gives you that information that, you're going to be either hitting in a friendly or not friendly or neutral environment every week.
Beautiful. Well said, Crosby. It's great work. I'm pushing it constantly. So if I'm pushing it, I'm expecting you people to at least take a look at it. Do yourselves a favor. I'll keep shoving it down your throat till the season's over, and maybe even beyond that. Having said that, of course, you can also listen to the Turn 2 podcast that Matt Williams does every Tuesday-ish. Paul, you've been on there several times. You guys were going over a lot of stuff lately. You covered kind of a halfway mark, or not a halfway mark, more of the Memorial Day weekend kind of check-in, second chance opportunities at positions.
Yep.
And you also talked about the ball. Was it the gunk related to the ball? Because I want to talk about the gunkathon or the gunk gone wrong, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of everything. Matt did a cool article a couple weeks ago on NBC. What is it now called? Whatever Roto World is now called.
NBC Sports Edge.
Sports Edge, that's the one. He was going to talk about which types of players are most impacted by the actual physical baseball and the changes that were made. You know, the types of players, the fly ball hitters more than the line drive hitters, different guys like that. And we were kind of talking about that from a sense, but we definitely also, that was the beginning, right after Glasnow got hurt, and was kind of really was really critical of them making a change in season. And we were kind of talking about what that would do and how that would affect kind of players and different things like that. And Crosby, I'm sure you'll probably be able to kind of agree with me on it. I don't know if necessarily, you know, the gripping differently was what caused Glasnow to get hurt, things like that. But you'll know as a player and anybody who's played sports to begin with in general, when you don't feel 100% or something feels off, you're more likely to hurt yourself elsewhere because you're overcompensating. You're doing something different than what you're used to doing. So there's definitely some validity to what Glasnow was saying, I think, where pitchers were used to doing one thing and they've kind of had to change up what they were doing. And it could have potentially caused him to be a little bit, you know, impact something more in his elbow or somewhere where he wasn't really putting a lot of pressure before because he's throwing differently.
Yeah, we see that kind of in the kinetic chain of injuries, and we've all kind of experienced that ourselves, right? You slightly sprain your left ankle, and you're compensating for that. And next thing you know, your right knee hurts. Exactly. So you know, the same thing happens with athletes, and you know, like I said, we've seen that with the kinetic chain of injuries. A shoulder turns into an oblique, turns into an elbow, et cetera, whatever. I seriously doubt that. Yeah, exactly. And I seriously doubt that he was lying about his own injury, and he knows his body as well as anybody could. And if he says that, you know, he was overcompensating and he feels that that's the reason for the injury, whether or not it was exactly the cause of the injury, it certainly impacted him somehow, whether it was, you know, mentally or physically. It's obviously having an effect on some, if not all, pitchers.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what I thought too. Initially, it seemed easy to dismiss him, but when you stop and think about it and you look further into what happened, it makes sense. You got to trust the people, like you just said, Crosby, who know their bodies. I would assume that people would ask me questions related to injuries that I've had. Hey, how did you feel? What happened? They would want to know how I was feeling before that. And the fact that he also admitted how he struck out 11 gnats in that last start, which without the gunk is still very impressive, but it cost him the rest of his season. Which, by the way, Paul, Tyler Glasnow, no chance this season, regular season. Highly unlikely.
It's highly likely that he's not coming back. But I saw a report this week, I think, that it was they got some positive news. He was feeling a little bit better with some of his more recent tests. So I wouldn't be shocked, but if I'm the Rays, I don't really have a reason to be pushing him, because you want him for, you know, years to come. You don't want to do what we're seeing it now with Lamet, right? Lamet's gone on and off the IL 3 or 4 times because they keep trying to push these elbow injuries. Elbow injuries and that kind of stuff, I don't like to mess with it too much if I don't have to.
All right. Is that basically what you think, Crosby? Would you be planning on picking up Tyler Glasnow for a September run even if you're in a Roto League?
Probably not. The chances of him coming back, being able to get himself back into game shape and be effective, you know, I think it's a pretty big long shot.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. I just wanted to double check. You never know. Hey, you guys are the wizards here. And I know that Baseball Savant has already been trademarked and copyrighted many times over, but you guys are Rotofanatic savants, in my opinion. They don't own that word in perpetuity. I'm not going to let them do that, okay? We can still have our own savants, damn it. All right, so you know what that means. Let's cover the housekeeping real quickly. We fire up the old Belvedere music, which Crosby's familiar with, but Paul has no idea what it is. And that's fine, because you guys are for different generations. You shouldn't. But do know it means housekeeping. Thank you to everybody who's been following us. Followers have grown. We cracked 1,000 followers on the Palazzo. Oh, shit, I didn't even say it. I get so excited about these shows. Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's, of course. We cracked 1,000 followers. Thank you so much for that. And we're climbing to 1,100. And we're still looking for trophy ideas. So if anybody has an idea for the Palazzo Podcast Invitational Trophy, which is guaranteed not to be won by myself or Deary, it's almost guaranteed at this point. I think I'm in 40th overall. There's 60 teams, and Deary's in 56th place. So after losing Lucas Sims last week, that was my last chance at having anybody who can get a save. It's a draft and hold, so I have guys like Reyes Moranta, Joe Jimenez. Good God, what was I thinking? I mean, just no chance for save. So I'm not going to win the overall, but that's fine. Our good pal Richard Sands, who's always a fan of the show and dedicated to the show, is dominating the overall, and I expect him to win it this year. And hopefully, we can give him a sweet-ass trophy. What would you do, Crosby, if you could come up with a sweet-ass trophy idea?
What would I do? What would the trophy look like?
Yeah. Anything you want.
Anything I want. Boy, I don't know. Maybe the Bash Brothers, or I don't know, something big and badass. I don't have to put a lot of thought into the trophy, although I display many of them.
How about this?
How about you?
A bronzed Bash Brothers with a steroid syringe, like right above both of them. They'd both be elbowing, bashing with a big old syringe in brass. That'd be sweet. I'd be down with that.
Yeah, there you go. They're bashing with their right forearms and injecting each other in the butt with their left hands.
That's a great idea. See, I knew you would come up with something. What about you, Paul? Any?
Oh man, I don't think I'm gonna beat that idea that he has there. But
Matt wants to know if he's late for the meeting. By the way, yeah. Sorry, Matt. Come on in for the Rotofanatic meeting.
Think what else would I want to do here? I don't know, man. I mean, a nice engraved bat, that could be always cool.
Ooh, engraved bat. Okay, I like that. That's something new. The other ones we've had are a bust of the guy who says, "Hey, it's Rico Palazzo" in the Naked Gun. Also, the KBO Championship Trophy, which is the sword. You guys seen that one from the KBO? It's pretty badass, too. So we've had a few good ideas, but this Bash Brothers ones, I think Deary would like this one. And since we can't actually win it, we'd like to be able to design it. So I might think...
Why don't you put your faces instead of the actual Bash Brothers?
Nobody got time for that, man. Nobody needs to see that. Keep it simple. A lot of terrified people out there. I know. It's terrified. Okay, so we covered the gunk. We're going to cover more on the gunk, which I also like to call
the Great Spin Rate Panic of 2021.
I heard people have a hard time hearing what this says. Are you guys getting this? Did you catch that?
Great Spin Rate Panic of 2021.
Thank you. You have great hearing, Paul. I must be hanging out with a lot of older people. Thank you very much. I was trying to make it sound old-timey.
The Great Spin Rate Panic of 2021.
It's like the 20s. Hey, I don't listen out here, Shay. Hey, I know what you're up to, Shay. One of those guys, or whatever the fuck that guy's name was. At any rate, yeah, the Great Spin Rate Panic of 2021. I don't think we care about the spin rate as much. We care about the offense that's going to be taken off. So we'll talk more about that. And that gets us into leading off. Boop. All right. It's the Hey, it's Rico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Don't forget, Palazzo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's on Twitter.
Utah, give me 2.
Thank you, Gary. And, of course, Rotofanatic.com is the presenting sponsor, although it's a complicated relationship. I'm involved with Rotofanatic.com, so it's not really a sponsor. It's kind of a sponsor. I don't know. I want to be honest. I don't ever want to lie to you guys, but maybe there's no need to explain it. Rotofanatic.com. It's a great place to learn about fantasy baseball. All right, so we're going to talk the catch of the day here. We got to get into some business. And when we do the catch of the day, we try to focus on somebody who's been on a roll, somebody who's really stood out recently, somebody who's really provided something.
It's business. It's business time.
Yes, it is business time, but it's also the catch of the day.
Good. Our first catch of the day.
All right, so it's obvious. Kyle Schwarber. I mean, what the fuck do you want me to say? This guy is in, speaking of roids, Crosby, he's in the elite territory of guys who are known for roids. Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds. The only other two guys to hit this many home runs in a short amount of time. I don't know what that says, but is it happening in a period where the gunk has been removed from the game, and it's clearly had a massive effect. We can't prove that yet, which is why I bring you guys in here to talk about that part. So, Paul, lead me off here. Is the gunk clearly, even though you couldn't provide me the piece of evidence, but are you confident that the gunk being taken out is what's led to Kyle Schwarber's tremendous June?
I mean, I'm sure that there's some sort of competing. It definitely will impact it a little bit, and probably off of the top of my head, I would think that guys that pop a lot of balls up, I don't have Schwarber directly in front of me and what he was doing before this, because the biggest thing that it's going to do probably for fastballs, and one of the things that I saw was he's been doing it a lot leading off games, right? So he's probably taking advantage of a lot of fastballs, just if I had to take a guess without knowing off the top of my head. So it's going to take a little bit of vertical movement away from fastballs. Vertical movement leads to pop-ups. And if you're just missing a ball, and then it doesn't move as much up as you think it's going to, you're going to square it up. You're probably going to hit a little bit better. Is that what's happening, or is Schwarber just absolutely locked in? I don't actually know, and I don't think we're going to be able to know until well beyond the end of the season. But it's definitely going to cause some more offense to come around if it does what we're thinking it does, right? If what the league thinks it does is happening, it's making pitchers gain hundreds of RPMs of spin, which it seems like it is from what we're looking at, causing more movement. Then pitchers are going to be worse, and that's one of the best ways to put offense in is make pitchers worse.
Before we get to Crosby, did you read Rob Arthur's piece about the ball going farther without the gunk?
I did not actually read that. I didn't know that there was they were looking into actually what happens when it's put in play. All the thoughts I've had is what happens from the mound to home. That's what I've always thought about with this. I wonder if there's is there a weight aspect to it, maybe that the little bit of extra stuff, or it's not what would it be, not symmetrical like a baseball
aerodynamically.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'll have to check that out actually, because that's really interesting.
Yeah, I was, full disclosure, it was alluded to me by, what's his face, who came on the show recently. What the hell's your name? I like you a lot. The guy, Tony! Jesus Christ. Tony from Open Bar. He came on. He's like, dude, have you read that article? I'm like, no, I have not. In fact, I had no idea who Rob Arthur was. I don't know everything. And then that's why we do this show, because we get to learn new shit. So strongly recommend checking out that article. He's like a data scientist wizard. So I think he knows, or at least he was trying to get at something through a data method, if you will. But Crosby, what's your take here? Kyle Schwarber, man, he is blasting off to Hall of Fame status, National League MVP 2021. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more that he's on a heater than just a change in the ball. I would like to think that if there's that change in the ball, then everybody would be, going off the way Schwarber is. I will say this, so I have Schwarber in a couple of leagues, and I like to look at the box scores on the app, and they show the highlights of guys going yard, which has just been amazing the last 12, 13 games. You had another one tonight so far before we came on.
Stop throwing pitches in the strike zone. What the hell?
Well, what's kind of crazy, too, is at least 4, maybe 5 of those home runs were fastballs, not up, but up and way out of the zone, definitely out of the zone, that he just tomahawked and, hit absolute bombs up. So that could definitely be a little bit of that spin thing and the gunk thing. I definitely think he's on a heater, though. I remember as a kid seeing who was the Dodger? Pedro Guerrero, hit 15, 16 home runs in a month. So, it's guys can get on these hot streaks. Stanton had I think it was a June or a July, like a 32 game stretch where he hit like 26 home runs or something nuts during his MVP season. So guys can get on these runs, and he's still in his prime. And I think it's more that he's on a heater than it is the gunk and the spin. But I wouldn't doubt if the gunk and the spin lends something to a couple of those home runs.
We've been doing drugs for 2 days with Pedro Guerrero.
How do you have that drop?
I just did that a while ago, and I never got in the rotation. But you finally created the moment, so
that
I could
is
do that.
awesome.
Thank you so much. He could. By the way, he really could have been a Hall of Famer. He just didn't quite put it all together. But he was a hell of a player in the '80s.
The battles between him and Joaquin Andujar during the playoffs were absolutely epic.
Yeah, Paul remember those, right, Paul? I think Paul just blogged about that.
Neither of those players.
Oh, yeah.
I have zero recollection, zero information on either of those players.
Yeah, Joaquin Andujar would drop you in a heartbeat with a pitch. He had absolute unbelievable temper. We used to call him Joaquin Tall, after a movie you probably don't know called Walking Tall. But, that dude was epically temper tantrum.
I know the remake. The Rock did Walking Tall remake, I feel like, in 2002.
Yeah, the original was sometime in the 70s.
Okay, yes. Matt says Paul was not alive. Yes, thank you, Matt. You read between the lines on that. You're right. I did see the highlight last night, I think it was, on SportsCenter, which I never catch. I just happened to be watching it. And he did tomahawk. Schwarber tomahawked one that was like way up and in, like a softball player. He looked like Matt Stairs or something. And
his first one tonight was off of Rich Hill, same kind of fashion. Rich Hill's throwing 90, but if that. But.
No, I think it was an 83-mile-an-hour fastball.
Oh,
like that's not what you want to throw at a guy that's on fire.
Yeah, that's
And he stood there like the house by the side of the road and watched it go by. Struck him out.
I don't think that would happen, Ernie, on an 83-mile-an-hour fastball. And it didn't. So Kyle Schwarber, he's on a heater. You're right. I can't wait to see what July brings, because if he continues, he won't continue this pace. It's unrealistic. We all know that, right? But
yes.
I don't know if he hits 8 or 9 home runs still in July. That's why I made the tweet last night. I think somebody yelled at me because I said, "Hey, we're all focusing on Schwarber, but Ohtani's got 11 home runs this month.
He hit 2 today.
He hit 2 today?
Yeah.
Fuck, that's 13. Okay, so he's got 13 home runs this month, and he's been doing it since the season started. This has truly almost been like a season-long heater. It's amazing.
I know we talked about him before the season. He's been unbelievable, and I think it's been. I mean, in places that I've drafted him, I haven't even considered using him as a pitcher, which I thought I would end up doing more of. I thought I'd use him as a pitcher more than a hitter, and it's been. There's no reason to consider it. They're letting him hit when he starts, which is incredible. I mean, it's so cool to actually see this happening. I don't think anybody thought. We thought he was going to be good. I don't think anybody thought he was going to be this good.
Yeah. By the way, Jasper, I think it's exactly your age, Crosby. So he remembers the original. He really does. Jasper's a friend of the show. What's up, Jasper? He remembers the original Walking Tall. That's wonderful news. I'll have to check it out.
Big old 2x4. Oh, yeah.
Ooh. The thing about that, Paul, I remember the Detroit start. In fact, that was Matt Manning's first start a couple weeks ago. And everybody said, this is the week to start Ohtani if you're going to do it as a pitcher. And he still had a weekend after that of absolute dominance from the plate that you would have missed out on. And he only ended up striking out, I believe, 5 Tigers. It wasn't like a dominant performance from the mound.
It's just unbelievable. And again, you're only getting, 1 start a week because they're still going with the 6-man rotation.
Exactly.
And but the whole concern with him is that they were going to sit him either the game before, the game after, and the game he was pitching. And you were going to get, 4 or 5 games on a good week. They're letting him hit every single day, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's unbelievable, and I don't think I was anticipating maybe using him either as a pitcher or using him on a weekend set instead of early in the week if he was supposed to throw on a Tuesday or something like that. But he's a guy you can't take out of your lineup. You'd miss too much.
Nope, wrong button. God damn it. I hate when that happens. I got a lot of buttons. Sorry, guys.
Don't be that guy.
There we go. Yeah, don't be that guy. Don't start him as a pitcher. You're going to miss out. I mean, Crosby, what else could we identify about Ohtani here and where we can use him as a pitcher or a hitter? Would you ever consider using him as a pitcher, or is it just too ridiculous until further notice? Until he goes on like a 2-week cold streak, truly.
Well, if your pitching staff, or your hitting staff is so great that you won't miss a guy who was pacing for 60 home runs and 30 stolen bases, then sure, throw him in your pitching lineup. But I have a feeling there aren't too many of those guys out there that have that kind of lineup. So yeah, I'm keeping Ohtani in as a hitter. I don't care if he slumps for a couple of weeks. The guy just hit 3 home runs in the last 2 days. He's one of those talents that can do that. He can still 3 more bases tomorrow. So he's a rare breed of a baseball player for sure.
No way.
Oh, it's true. Absolutely true. So that's cool. Shohei Ohtani is just a dreamboat. And I also said this last night. I was so glad that he didn't sign with the Yankees. It would have ruined it for me a little bit. It really would have. And the fact that he didn't do that, just all the more credit to him. And he'll never go to the playoffs. And he'll just sit there with Mike Trout every year having these great individual seasons, which we'll adore from afar while we never see him ever again in any meaningful baseball games, which is unfortunate, but small price to pay.
Incredible that they can't find. I guess Patrick Sandoval's been okay. They can't find any pitching. It does not matter who they throw out there. They just can't find pitching. Their guys have. I don't think I've ever seen a staff with more 5+ ERAs. Like, they should be good. I don't get it.
Yeah. Hey, I'm the guy who drafted Dylan Bundy like 18 times. So yeah, I was desperate. I was desperate just like they were, and that's my fault. And Dylan got a little sick last night. I hope he's okay. He pulled a Willie Beeman, for those of you who know that reference, yesterday on the field, but I think he'll be all right. Let's talk moist balls. Yes, it's a cheesy, cheap line. I went for it. But I want to talk about the humidor, which Crosby really wanted to focus on. The humidors around Major League Baseball. I feel like a lot of us don't know where they are and what they're doing right now. And that's why Crosby is here to kind of illuminate and enlighten us on what the hell is going on. So, Crosby, set the table here of what your focus was here in this little examination.
Okay, so basically last year, let's kind of start at the beginning. People know, they should know that Phoenix and Colorado have humidors in their stadiums, and that was implemented in order to take away some offense from that altitude. But the impression of that is because it does take away offenses in those two areas, specifically home runs. The idea is that the humidor has a negative effect on offense. That's actually not true. Those two stadiums just happen to be the two driest stadiums. So when you take a baseball and put it in a humidor, you're making it in a dry location. You're making it heavier than the outside air and what it normally would be. And it causes the ball to travel not as far. So, and there's actually a formula that's been calculated by Dr. Alan Nathan. He's a physicist and has done plenty of papers on the effects of humidors and all kinds of things dealing with the physics of baseball. And he's come out with some calculations on how everything is impacted there. But just give you kind of a base of reference here. So he used the calculation, and I don't know if it's a Major League Baseball standard or not, but since he uses it, a 50% relative humidity humidor, and does his numbers based off of that, and they came out pretty close to right on with the Rockies and with the Diamondbacks and the impacts on their offense. I'm going to assume he knows what he's talking about here and what teams are storing these balls at. Well, every other ballpark has a relative humidity higher than 50%. So that actually, a humidor should increase offense if you're storing the ball at 50%, right? So last year we added, or Major League Baseball added 3 teams that were using the humidors. They were Boston, the New York Mets, and Seattle. And so right around mid-September of last year, I looked into it, used the same dates from late July through mid-September for 2020 and for 2019, and just kind of compared, expected home run rates and basically expected offense in general versus 2020 versus 2019. And it was kind of a mixed bag. Basically, the Mets, when you look at their calculations, they should be right about even. And they were pretty much neutral for those dates. Seattle, their offense was slightly up, but starting to produce more offense in late August and into September. And sure enough, if you look at the humidity rates for Seattle, it's kind of higher in the spring, lower in the early to midsummer, and then goes up towards August and September. And their offense was kind of following that trend. I mean, it's funny how physics works, right? So, and then in Boston, their offense was up pretty significantly during those summer months of late July, August, and half of September. Boston was up from being like, middle of the road offense numbers for home runs, at least, to towards the top or number 1 in offense. And if you look at the humidity numbers in Boston, they're lower in spring and higher in midsummer. So that kind of followed along. This year, baseball added a humidor in Houston, Miami, St. Louis, Texas, and Toronto. So with Texas, Toronto, and Miami.
Wait. In Toronto, both places they played, Buffalo and Dunedin?
Yeah, well, as far as I know, right? I know they did it for Dunedin. I'm imagining that they're carrying that over to Salem Field, and I imagine they'll carry that over to Toronto itself. I don't know that for a fact, but that's all I know is that they had them. I'm imagining they're going to keep them for the whole season by teams, is what I'm imagining. So. Toronto and Texas, it doesn't do us a lot of good because Toronto's not playing in their home stadium. So to compare them to the previous stadium really doesn't do much. Same thing with Texas. For those that don't know, they have a new stadium. And even if we were to compare it to last year, it doesn't really work because it's different dates, different time of year. And then Miami, you can make the comparison. But they also did change their field a little bit. They moved in center field 7 feet from 407 to 400. They moved in, I believe it was right center field about 5 feet or so as well. So in getting to this, there is, it's kind of following with what you would expect. Miami is a humid place. I'm expecting home runs to go up. Right now, they're about on par with what they were the same dates. I compared it to 2018 because this ball is acting almost exactly like the 2018 ball. So I compared 2018 in this comparison. It is acting almost identical to the way the ball acted in 2018. However, humidity is about to go through the roof in Miami, or has already started to. Yeah. And, in center field where they made the biggest change, sure enough, their home runs versus center field are up. Center field in 2018 is up 43%. So you're seeing some changes there. St. Louis is pretty much, again, they're slightly up. They're at a 101, but much like Miami, their relative humidity is about to go through the roof. So I would expect some more home runs there. Let's see. Houston, they're up. It's already, that's a humid ballpark. Now, I don't know how Houston is going to react in the summertime because I believe it's above 96 degrees. They close the roof. So I don't know if they close the roof and all of a sudden that's weather controlled and the humidity, drops and it just kind of plays as a neutral to what it used to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long it takes for that stadium to lose that impact of the humidity. So I'm not exactly sure. But so far in the springtime when their roof was open most of the time, they were up 3% on an already home run heavy ballpark. So that's kind of been some of the impact so far. I did want to touch on one thing. When I wrote the article last September, I also I touched on San Francisco, right? And so San Francisco, there was kind of that idea that you closed that archway in right field and that was going to impact home runs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I wrote my paper that I disagreed. Didn't mean that I was right. Just meant that I disagreed with the data that I had. So far this year versus 2018, home runs are up 13%. And you say, aha, right? That goes to show you that ballpark is giving up more home runs because of that park in that archway in right field. Well, yeah, not so fast, my friend. It's up 22% to left field. It is up 10% to left center field. It is up 59% to center field, where they moved the fence from 399 to 390, a 391 center field. That's pretty crazy. So up 59% to center field. Now it is down 58% to right center field, and it is down 9% to right field. So the areas that was thought that the field would increase home runs, they're actually down. And they're up to the fields where they change the actual distances in center, right center, and left center field. So just thought I'd throw that in there on ballpark impact so far. And also just one thing, Texas is playing overall much better than it did last year, but still down about 2% in total offense from its old ballpark at the same time frame. So
isn't that negligible then? Or
it is, yeah, it is negligible.
Okay.
On a small sample size, like half a year versus 3 years of data, or I guess in this case, just versus all of 2018, it's negligible. Yeah, that could change in a weekend series probably.
That's the fact that Texas is up relative to last year, and we haven't even played in the same months is pretty significant, right? Like it's completely playing like a different park. No,
it is playing like a different park, and you would kind of expect that. One is that last year almost all the games were played indoors, because it was during late July through August, and then they got to open it up in September and in the playoffs, and it seemed like the ball was going out a little bit more. I didn't actually do a study on it, but anecdotally it seemed like the ball was flying a little bit more in the playoffs. And this year, when you played in the spring, Texas has the roof open more times than not. Now that it's getting in the hotter summer months, they're going to have it closed. So we'll see if it plays exactly the way that it played during 2020.
That's how I remember it too. That's how I remember last summer in the short bozo season that we had, was that roof was closed and they were running like crazy, but they couldn't score for shit. I have that imprint in my brain.
Here's one thing I didn't touch on Seattle. So Seattle, sorry about that. Seattle is up 7%
Total shame.
home runs.
Shame on you. Failure.
Yeah, my bad. So Seattle is up 7% in home runs versus the same time in 2018. And that follows the way their humidity patterns go. Then be it on the ocean, it's higher in the spring, kind of hits a valley in the midsummer, and then goes back up in August and September. And we did see that last year, where the offense in the mid part of the summer was playing a little bit better, taking them from like a 23 ranked offensive park to like maybe a 17 or 18, somewhere in there. And then in the latter part of the year, we started seeing home runs fly out of there and play bigger. And really, like I said, if it's all basically physics, there's an article that is linked to in the article that I wrote, and it'll give you kind of it'll give you a scale of if they put a humidor in every single city. And let me give the reference. This is from a 2014 article research by Ryan Morrison of SB Nation, and he ran through what it would be like to put a humidor in every city. They even included nice enough for him for Buffalo, because I guess Buffalo was being talked about as a possible expansion site. So they're even in there, and it gives you both daytime or afternoon humidity rates and nighttime humidity rates, and you can kind of see who gets impacted the most if they had a humidor in there. And the only negative impact stadiums are Phoenix and Denver. Everyone else has a positive impact. Dallas has a slight impact, negative impact during the day, but at night their humidity goes up pretty high, and so they get a pretty good boost there. So
I've been there. It's hell on earth. I know you live in Texas, even deeper than that. And I spent a summer selling stupid books door to door in Dallas, Fort Worth, in the Metroplex, and it was hell on earth. I had the most awful swamp ass anybody could ever have.
Yeah, it's not pleasurable during the summer. I can attest to that. But you can find that article in my article on. It was called the 2020 Park Factors for the 7 new MLB parks. and it touches on the Humidor Stadium, Salem Field, which is now relevant again, the new stadium in Arlington, along with the parks that were impacted by changes in Miami and San Francisco. And I'll put something out a little bit later in the year when we have some more data on the park vector impacts I've talked about with St. Louis and the other humidor parks.
Yeah, I just dropped the link for that article you did right in our live chat. And I Googled it and found it, which is good for our website that we can Google Rotofanatic 2020 park factors and it comes right up. That's good news for us, I suppose. But Matt says, back it up. Sold books door to door in Texas. Can we elaborate on this? I could. We could go on for days about that stupid job. It only lasted for about 5 weeks before they sent me home on a bus ticket after they forced me to admit that I was lying because I kept saying I was selling books when clearly there was no money coming in. But I couldn't. I was too proud, and I was out there 14 hours a day. I went to a Red Lobster once. I was so hungry in Dallas. And I sat down, I ordered a Cajun pasta, and they had the Cheddar Bay biscuits. And I was like, yes, I'm so hungry. And it's nice and air-conditioned in here. But when they showed up with the pasta, I just couldn't lie anymore. I'm like, I don't have any money. And they're like, could you leave? And they didn't, I didn't get to eat it. And I never found out if I actually did eat it, if they would have made me wash dishes, which is the old wives' tale,
right.
About. So who knows, but... the highlight of that whole trip was I remember watching Castaway in a dollar theater, and it was so cold in there, I didn't want to leave. That was the highlight of that trip. So, yeah, there's some more stories, but we don't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. This is the Hans Rico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball Podcast, presented by Rotofanatic.com. I'm Michael Govier. Paul Mammino, Crosby Spencer just broke down incredible information. I really hope you guys absorb that. Take your time with it. Crosby Spencer 1 on Twitter, P Mammino Fantasy on Twitter, MJ Govier, GOV is in Victor, IER on Twitter. Paul, any other responses to that? Because I was looking at Seattle's home road splits and their run differential. They're got a negative 43 run differential, but they're way over 500 on the road, and they're 5 games under 500 at whatever the fuck it's called now. It used to be Safeco back in the day. So, what do you think of all that?
I mean, I think it's all fascinating because I think the last couple of years, we've focused a little bit more about the physics of how balls actually carry. And the other interesting thing with it, Crosby, is you see some of these stadiums that are up, even with what we relatively think is, a less bouncy, less whatever word you want to use, a ball that's not traveling nearly as well, right? So you're still seeing it kind of up. And I know you alluded it's similar to 2018. We're kind of seeing a lot of the same things. But I think we've focused so much on physics of it all, and we don't put as much time into thinking about how, we always think about how stadium fences, all those distances matter, but the actual, weather that these stadiums have is a
absolutely
impact. And the wind patterns, everything that we see, but the humidity is such a big part of it that we don't quite realize. And again, I think we you said it before, broadly, we think that humidors are always going to make it go one way or another way, but it's really relative to the individual location, which is kind of such an interesting.
Yeah, you got it. The weather plays a huge factor. Wind patterns. So, for instance, I didn't have in doing the study was predominantly on the humidor, and I would have liked to look into this one particular city's weather patterns this year versus 2018. But the team that's up the highest in home runs or expected home runs versus expected home runs from 2018 to this season is the Chicago Cubs. Now, we know that stadium is a place that can vary greatly in weather, whether it's coming off the lake or whether it's coming up off the plains. We know that the same thing goes with the wind patterns. Every single time I've been there, whether it's been in May or it's been in August or September, and I've been there for, I don't know, probably I've spent about 21, 22 days in Chicago to see baseball games. And every single day I've been there, I don't care what day it is, between 3:30 and 5:30, there is a rainstorm and wind that comes flying through there every single time. So I would, just the weather in different locations can have impacts besides just the physics and besides the humidors, et cetera. So, those things impact from year to year as well.
Good stuff. That is so fantastic. I'm going to go back and check that stuff out even more because I need to absorb everything you said. And I really feel like I need to incorporate it. Like Paul said, there is an advantage to be created here. And it's not just a bunch of highfalutin talk. Like, hey, look how smart we sound. We put in the effort. Not we, Crosby put in the effort on this. But it does make a difference. So I'm glad you said that, Paul. And I still find it fascinating that Seattle has such an advantage on the road right now. I know it's going to balance out eventually, probably. But every time they go home, they seem to get no hit, too, which is also very weird. You know, Spencer Turnbull did it, and he's not a world beater. I love Spencer Turnbull, but he's not. He's not Casey Mize or Tarek Skubal, frankly. You know, maybe, but that's another story. It's not a Tiger-centric podcast. It's a Rico Plato fantasy baseball podcast.
Utah.
2 L's
Give me
and
2
2 Z's, and of course,
Go Tigers.
always go Tigers. Yep. Although that's not my Tigers. That's
Go Tigers.
Ed O's Tigers. So, all right. Let's talk about the Data Monster real quick. So the reason I want to talk Data Monster is because recently we get a lot of these. I'm not popular, but you know, sometimes people ask me questions, and it's usually the same cast of characters. Stretch, I know you're out there. Stretch, shout out to you. You're always asking questions on Twitter. And then there's the secret people who don't want to be known. They prefer to remain anonymous, and they DM you privately, like Miguel and Kalen, and they ask you questions every day, which I love. I love that shit. I do. But Blake's now somebody who keeps coming up. So I looked at the Data Monster. I'm like, you know what I haven't done, Paul, is I haven't looked at the goddamn Data Monster and what it's telling me, because that's going to give me a different perspective. So when I looked at it last night, his ERA or stuff ERA was 4.53, which is below average. Yes. Average is 407, right?
Somewhere in that range. I think this year might be a little bit higher. It kind of fluctuates year to year, but it's in that general range. But yeah,
definitely below.
Mid fours is below average. For sure.
Okay, yes. All right, good. And then his command, his RF command was 2.11, and 0 is average.
Yes, correct. That centers around 0.
So what does that number tell us? What does his command number tell us? If it's not that bad, it's not 6. Where, by the way, Alex Cobb is at 6.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What's going on there?
So, I mean, the best way to break down is the entire idea of the Data Monster is to separate location from quote unquote stuff, right? The way I describe it best is if we both throw a fastball right down the middle, that's going to be, you know, there's going to be a certain number of swings and misses on that fastball. There's going to be a certain number that ball's probably going to be hit pretty well. It's going to be swung at most likely, or more likely than not, right? So what I can do is based off location, knowing nothing else about the pitch other than pitch type and where it's actually thrown. We know about how often that's going to generate a swing and miss, about what the WOBA would be on contact, and about how often a guy's going to swing at that pitch. When a pitcher is able to generate more swings and misses than expected, or able to, I like to think of it as more takes, because if from a pitcher, you want either swing and miss or you want a called strike, right? Those are probably two of the best results you can get as a pitcher, because a ball was not put in play. Anytime a ball goes in play, bad things can happen. Error, it drops in, whatever. So what you can see is how many more than expected, or how much more often than expected a given pitcher can generate. So throwing a bunch of fastballs down the middle, getting a ton of swing and misses, that means something. It means you're really good, because it means there's something different about your fastball than someone else's fastball, right? So you're going to generate more swings and misses. So what the whole idea of the Data Monster does is it tries to help us understand what is that expected result and how much better or worse than the expected result is a given pitcher. So what you see when you look into command, and what I've kind of understood from it as I've been building it, because that stuff ERA is meant to be an ERA estimator like FIP or one of the other ones. It's supposed to kind of put you to that level. So what it does is it's going to take all of those results, how much better or worse you are at each of the different events. There's 4. I treated it as 4 events: swings and misses. Yes, Matt, basically not Garrett Cole's fastball. Right now, at least. Swings and misses.
Damn it.
Takes within the zone, chases out of the zone, right? So if I throw a breaking ball in the dirt, are you more likely to swing it in general, or not swing it? And then what actually happens when you put the ball in play. So what it's seeing, and what I've understood and what I've come to realize, is that the command side of it, as I grade it, which is taking those events, how much better than average are you, essentially? And that's what that number is kind of telling you. It's Z-score, standard deviations. We don't have to get into that, but it's essentially just how much better than the average player are you at those things. That's why 0 is, average, because you're not better, you're not worse. But what I've realized is that command is not as big of a factor as the pure stuff side of things, right? one of the pitchers that Stuffy Arrays loved for a few years now is Yusei Kikuchi, and he has graded out last year. I believe it was he had the worst command out of all of my. I've used like 500 pitches plus the sample. He had the worst command. But what he does is he's actually able to generate a good amount of swings and misses. That's one of the things that he does best, right? So two pitchers that are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum is Kikuchi, who doesn't locate well but can generate a lot of swings and misses. And last year you had Zach Plesac, who had a similar whiff rate to Kikuchi, but what he did was he located extremely well, right? So his higher whiff rate was because he was throwing pitches to areas that tend to get a lot of swings and misses. But Kikuchi's, in theory, is more impressive, right? So that's why he's going to grade better in Stuffy Array, because he's almost getting away with more. The pitch itself is better. The stuff is better. It's just kind of more impressive. So that's the whole idea of what the data monster is trying to do is help us separate the command and the actual stuff, or, just what makes a guy better or worse, essentially. How much better or worse are they than what we'd expect them to do?
Carlos Rodon, for example, he has a minus 0.84 command, but he gets a lot of swings and misses, like you're saying, right? So he would probably fit into that mold as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you flip the, let's I'll go. I use 750. The worst pitchers that have thrown 750 pitches in command. You have Madison Bumgarner, Kobe Allard. Both guys have kind of struggled, but then you get Lance Lynn, Yusei Kikuchi, Shohei Ohtani, Rich Hill, Sean Manaea. You're starting to get into these pitchers that have poor command, but like a guy like Ohtani, a guy like Lance Lynn, you watch them and their stuff is impressive, right? You can kind of physically see it with your eyes, and you might not realize that they're not locating as well as they should, but they're still elite pitchers. And I think that's kind of one of the more important things to kind of notice is that you have guys like Ohtani, Lynn. There's a bunch of guys like that are really they don't locate as well. And then again, if you flip it and you go with the best command, you take the other end of it. You have your Alex Cobb, who you kind of alluded to, but he's been struggling because the stuff itself isn't as elite. I mean, he's actually been probably better than I think people. Well, the numbers have been quite bad. He's had some really bad blow up starts, but he's been pretty good in various parts of the season. But you have guys that when you flip it for the command side, it's not as impressive as the list on the other end. And that kind of shows the command might be something we overrate sometimes. And the pure stuff side of it is a huge part of it. Like you look and you stuff ERA and you see Brandon Woodruff has pretty poor command. That's something that it's just because his stuff is so impressive, he's able to get away with it. And then there are pitchers like Jacob deGrom, who's just on his own level, and he can locate well and he has insane stuff. So he's just one of by far the best pitcher in baseball. But
by the way, there's three Brewers all in a row right here: Woodruff, Burns, Peralta. That's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things that's kind of interesting with Burns is a good example of it. He's kind of hovered around that mid range. Lucas Giolito's another guy that's around that mid range for command. But their walk rates are high. We think of them as poor command guys because they walk a lot of guys. For some pitchers, that's not necessarily a bad thing. One of the things that Burns was doing really well last year, if you looked at where he was throwing fastballs, was almost everything was on a corner, which, that's going to lead you to walk a lot of guys, but you're going to get a lot of bad contact because you're throwing cutters on a corner, or you're going to get a lot of takes in the zone because you're throwing, again, cutters in corner, places where you don't expect to be. So it's kind of one of those things where traditional ways that we grade command, and for fantasy it matters, right? Walks matter for fantasy, but for what makes a guy a great pitcher, command doesn't matter quite as much. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to highlight with the Data Monster and kind of help people better understand exactly what's happening there.
Fantastic. I think all of that made sense to me. I actually really followed all of it for once, which is a breakthrough for me because I've gotten better at it. I've grown as a human being, and it makes sense now. Just because you have a number doesn't mean it's the be-all, end-all. You have to factor it into all the other peripherals that are available to you, right?
Yeah, and that's the one thing. You can't, I like to build the error estimator, that stuff ERA, and have it in one big, all-encompassing, this tells us a lot, this is the one number to look at, but that's not really the truth, because you don't want to look at one number for really anything you're doing. You want to understand things. And I think the biggest thing for me is and one of the things you can do is you can kind of go back and see, I have this stuff back to 2015 because it's all StatCast stuff. You can see how a pitcher changes, right? Like Plesac from 19 to 20, he made a big jump in whiff rate and things like that. but he also made a big jump in the expected whiff rate. So he was locating really well. And I think I wrote an article about it before the season. He was locating really well. And guys that made that big of a jump, they don't necessarily keep it as much because it's kind of hard to be absolutely pinpoint with your control over the course of the season. For the most part, your fastball, it's going to move relatively similarly. You might hang a few and you might do this, but for the most part, you're not going to go up or down in terms of the stuff side of things. And, now that we have all the sticky stuff going on, I do actually kind of want to try to break down the stuff side. We did throw in some game logs where you can go in and see how their location has changed. And we're going to I'm going to monitor those with some of the pitchers that, are struggling now, like Garrett Cole and things like that. Nothing major's jumped out from looking at that. So I want to kind of see if we can understand the pitchers who've lost the most kind of month over month. So that's kind of one of my next projects.
Hell yes. Crosby, a guy like Carlos Rodon, are you expecting him to regress rest of season at a certain point?
You would think so, but I don't think we've ever seen him pitch like this, right? With this kind of walk rate, with this kind of command, right now. So my expected stats are about 5 days old on pitchers. So I'm looking at him right now. I have him rated as the 7th best pitcher. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th best pitcher on expected stats so far. So he looks good, but just baseball wise, you could have the skills, right? But the skills like surface stats, they wax and wane. So just on the fact that, he's coming off Tommy John surgery, we've never seen him pitch this well before. So I would think natural regression and the fact that I don't see him being able to pitch a full season all the way through. They have their eyes on the playoffs. I would imagine they're going to start skipping some starts here. But so I don't think the value to your fantasy teams is going to be as high as they've been. But right now, everything he's done is absolutely fully earned. And I actually have him expected to do slightly a little bit better than he's done. So to answer your question, you're going to get less value in the second half in Carlos Rodon. There's no doubt about that, but he has fully earned what he's done. This is not luck.
That is bullshit!
Well, I agree with Crosby. I love it. It's really taken me to new heights in teams that I have him. I have him on a few teams. So I waited for this his whole career. That slider, when he came out of NC State, number 3 overall pick, I just thought this is what he would always be. And the fact that it finally happened after the Bozo season came and went, and he got non-tendered, and I guess he got bitch slapped by his girlfriend in like a reality check situation there. Something, I don't know if it's his girlfriend or if it's his fiance. I don't know if he's married. I apologize if I don't know the relationship status, but I do know she kicked him in the rear. So good on you, lady. I don't know. But all right, I'm going to save this because I want to save this for the I've made a huge mistake segment. All right, this is the Hey, it's Rico Plato Fantasy Baseball Podcast. You are hearing Paul Mammino and Crosby Spencer break down hardcore data to help you win. That's what they're trying to do. These guys are jolly fellas, and they want to make a difference on your fantasy squad. So take the time, I know we don't always do a show on a Tuesday, so this is a weird night. For some of you, you're not used to it. I know you're all creatures of habit, so, I understand that, and I'll let it slide this time. But make sure that you're checking the YouTube channel. Sub us. All of the shows are here in perpetuity. You can watch them. You can pause it. You can rewind it. You can go forward with Paul's voice and Crosby's voice. You can fast forward it. I don't know. I think you can play with it pretty freely. So make sure you sub the YouTube channel. Plazo Podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah, give me 2.
All right. We're not going to do Enrico's Inquisition because we've done it before with you guys. Been there, done that. I want to get into what really matters here. And that is Name That Runner-Up Fab Bid. Yeah, it's everybody's favorite game. It's a game that's taken over the nation. It's a lot of fun. It's a stupid game. It doesn't really have a lot of skill in. Really, it's just a random guess. But if you have some insight from your own leagues and you love Fab, you're going to enjoy it. So I'll start, show you guys how it works. I think I laid it out pretty clearly. But I'm going to take us to my main event. How about that? By the way, Paul, how are you doing in your main event? We're both in main events for the first time.
Yeah. I was doing well as of a couple weeks ago. I was actually looking into it.
Oh, boy. Wait, I was doing well. Not a good start.
Not doing well now. We're talking about I've made a huge mistake kind of stuff. And I I kind of go in with a approach of drafting to certain target numbers, and one of the places where I've kind of fallen the most is in RBIs and home runs. And a big part of that is that, I was counting on 30-ish home runs from Conforto and Max Kepler, and both guys kind of gotten hurt. But the big thing that's happened for me, and it's happened for me in a lot of my leagues, is I've had a lot of guys that have had days where they've missed, 2 to 3 games in the middle of a week. And in my main event team, I think I was looking at it going into this, I have the second least at bats in the league. That's not ideal, right? So I've made a lot of mistakes in guys that are sitting playing 2 out of 3 in an early part of the week and things like that. So that's kind of been the big thing that's been tripping me up is just I've not been able to get the at bats that I was hoping to get.
I've made a huge mistake.
We've all done that. It's okay.
How are you doing?
I'm in 10th place. I have 70 points.
Yeah.
I can't seem to get the hitting going. The pitching's 40 and the hitting's 30, so the pitching has actually been stronger. Drafting Corbin Burns after Dave from Rotosaurus chastised me for it has actually been a genius move. Really, people, I think we're not all forgetting this, but some of us are forgetting it was risky. We didn't know if he could do what he did in the brief 2020 sample, and he's definitely he's taken it. This is who he is. I think we know that now. But an example that, to relate to your situation, Ian Happ, I have never dropped him in my main event because it's a 15-teamer, but he has not done dick. And then I benched him this week, and he had a home run yesterday. I bet he had a home run today. I haven't checked, but, that kind of shit happens, right, Crosby?
Absolutely.
Is
that the best color guy in the league for nothing?
That's right. Dynamite drop in, Monty. All right. Well said, sir. All right. So I'll take it to my main event. And this past week, we had some big fab bids. I won't do the Keston Huron one because I posted that on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. So, Keston Huron did go for 137 in our main event, which was the highest of any main event, by the way.
Mine was 10. Actually, no. I wrote him down in TGFBI. I think it was. He went for 100 in that one for me. But
yeah, I bid 122, so I was a little short. And some people are saying that I'll luck out, but I actually like with the gunk gone. I actually think Ryan Venancio, who's been pushing this theory for a while, that he's going to be a beneficiary, kind of like maybe Schwarber has been. We can't prove that yet, but I actually like that theory. So I'm expecting Hira to do some good things. He'll still strike out a lot, but I think he's going to take advantage. There's going to be more offense too. There just is. And I know we're just getting out of the transition here, so we don't know yet, but rest of the season, I'm expecting more offense. I am.
But we can get into it in the end too, but if you're in the bottom half of the league, he's a guy you want to take a chance on, right?
Absolutely.
You want to take a chance on a guy like him who has the upside to be what he was a top 80 pick last year, top 80 pick this year. He's a guy, if you're looking at him or a boring guy, and again, I know I'm complaining that I didn't have at bats in my main event team now, but if you're looking at a guy who's just going to get you at bats and not really do much, you need to chase upside when you're down. So he's a guy that you have to be willing to take that chance because it doesn't really matter if you finish in 9th or if you finish in 15th, you still get nothing. So, you want to take the chance to maybe put yourself in a position to kind of get back into the money and things like that.
Huh.
Whoopsie daisy!
Yeah, shit happens. You're right. And that's a good point as well. In fact, I've missed out on Keston Hira, Alex Kirilloff, and Tyler O'Neill 3 times in this same main event. I've tried to bid on them. They were all available over the past 6-7 weeks, and I lost all 3. So that's how it goes. Rookie in the main event. But I want to talk about Amir Garrett. Amir Garrett was picked up for 43 bones in my main event league. Gentlemen, what was the runner-up fab bid? Crosby, we'll go to you first.
I'm going to say 39.
39? High bid of 43? Paul, what about you?
I'm going to say 19.
You're both over. Paul is closest. The actual runner-up bid was $13.
Wow. He surprisingly went for lower than I thought in a few places. He was a guy I saw in when I was going through these to set this up. I think in general he went for lower than I expected. I think it's just because he was so bad that people don't want to trust him again. And I definitely did target Brock in a few places. So
there was a whole peppering. I think this goes to this what I noticed the trend over the weekend. You had Brock and Garrett, and then you had the Philly situation, Alvarado, Bradley, and all. There was a lot of even the Tigers now. Fulmer went back on the IL, so you had Gregory Soto and Jose Cisnero. There was a lot of ways to add cheap speculative save ads this weekend. So I assume people were going to go lighter, or if you're smart, that's what you would have done unless you had money to burn.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably the best bad week for closer options, right? Like, we didn't have a no doubt guy, like, not that we've really had many of those to begin with, but we didn't have a guy that was going to go for a couple hundred. But you definitely saw some of these guys go for more affordable if you're in the need for saves.
Crosby, you want to go next?
All right, let's go. All right, let's do Steven Duggar. He went for 23.
This is the guy that I never pick up. I've never had him on a team once, but I understand that he could be usable. 23, you said?
Yes.
I'm going to say that somebody was mildly interested, but not nearly as interested. I'll say $7. Paul?
I'm going to go with 5. I'm in the same range as you. I think he's a guy that somebody put a little more than they felt they had to.
Yeah, the runner-up bid was 11, and the reason why I bring him up, when he plays on a per-plate appearance basis, the guy's been doing some nice stuff, and he actually he showed up on my stuff last year as well. And with a couple more guys going on the DL for San Francisco, Belt's out, they got some moving parts they can move around. If you can strategically play him where he's getting 5 to 6 games of at bats in a week, I think he can be a useful player.
They have a few guys and one of the things that they've been doing is just riding that hot hand.
Yeah.
I assume you have all year, Paul. I mean, you were coming into the season the Giants homer of all homers. So
I loved Austin Slater and a few of their other guys. I still have some interest in a lot of them. Actually, the guy I like the most from them, which I think has kind of gotten picked up in a few places now, is Lamont Wade.
Yeah.
But he's but the problem that you had with all those guys is that it's part of the reason why they're so successful so far this year is they were going with almost completely different lineups versus lefties and righties. And it made it hard in weekly leagues to pick a lot of these guys up because you weren't, you'd have to get a week where it was all righties and you could load up on their lefties, or you had a week where it was, multiple lefties and you could put my boy Wilmer Flores in your lineup and things like that. But, that's what's made them really tough. But I think you're right, Crosby. I think that as they have some more injuries and kind of these things happen, Duggar's definitely a guy that's got some interest. And he was relatively interesting in 18? And then I think he had a starting job, or was that 19 and 20? And then he was just awful and he got sent down and never really got another chance.
The trials and tribulations of Steven Duggar, the legend himself. He's still only 27 years old, and he's not had a lot of experience other than coming up in 18s. That was his first year of the bigs. So, that's interesting. Yeah. Giants, this is what the Giants are if you're a Dodgers fan.
Who the hell are you?
We came to wreck everything and ruin your life.
Yeah, but the Dodgers will end up overtaking them, right? Does anyone think that they won't?
No. They're too good. I mean, I don't think the Dodgers, they can't sustain it.
Yeah.
I like the Giants pitching staff, but if they have more injuries, then they're going to run out of – they can't keep running these random guys out there that have career years all at once.
You agree, Cross?
Well, it's funny. We talk about the magic of what St. Louis does with guys like the Wrench and guys coming up and absolutely having not much of a minor league track record. They come up and come out of nowhere and produce for the team that go and do titles. San Francisco is quickly overtaking St. Louis. I mean, they have got a team of has-beens, never were's, never thought would-be's. But the Dodgers are the Dodgers. I think they're also anywhere that they are lacking, they'll address it at the trade deadline. And I don't think San Francisco can keep up this pace, but they are pretty damn good at getting everything out of their players.
Okay,
that's probably one of the more important things you need to do as they have money. They're a big market team, but you need to be able to get the most out of it. That's what the Yankees did 2 years ago when everybody got hurt. and Urshela and Voigt and all these guys made debuts, and they got the most out of these relatively unheralded guys. Now you're seeing what happens when your stars also don't play well, but that's kind of what you need to do as a team like this. And everyone was talking about the Giants going into the year as they didn't really make any big moves. They kind of held themselves serve, right? They just kind of we're going to go out with these old guys, and they've gotten bounce back years from Posey, and Brandon Belt was good when he's healthy, and Longoria was really good before he got hurt. And Brandon Crawford is learned how to hit. Either one. He's hit for a ton of power that he's never done before. So
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
But it's true. That's the crazy part. It's all true. Fucking Brandon Crawford. Unreal. God. All right, let's play. Paul, I think you're up, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, let's do a Akil Baddoo. Let's do a guy who was probably dropped, and kind of like Hira, dropped in a lot of leagues probably, and was available in a few. So the winning bid was 57.
Wow. 57. What league is this?
This was TGFBI, I think.
Okay. That makes more sense. Yeah. Not a main event bid. I wouldn't see that. Or he'd probably be on a team already. I'll go first. 57 for Akil Baddoo. By the way, you can listen to the Akil Baddoo song on the playlist on our YouTube channel anytime you want. He inspires us all. I said Rookie of the Year in the song as a joke, but shit, I don't know. Hey, Adolis Garcia's cooled off. Anything's possible. Boy, I don't see anybody going big time on this. I feel like that's goofy, but it is TGFBI. I'm going to say there was another bid for 32.
I'll say 26.
Both under 39 was the runner-up.
He's had a good last 30 days or so.
But he's only playing. What is it? He's only playing against righties. They refuse to let him hit against lefties. That was a good way around.
Is that true? Yeah. Oh, that's news to me.
I know. There was a point in time, or maybe he's in the lineup, but he just can't hit lefties.
Yeah, that sounds.
Yeah, so I mean, he's playing a decent amount. He's putting up some good numbers. He's been playing really well actually, but
until his last 4 or 5 days, he was his OBP. Somebody put this up. It was a great stat. I wish I could find it. It was one of the best OBPs over the since May 1st. It was really above average. Kind of shocked me, but there can be lulls in there too, right?
And I think when a guy does what he did to begin a season and then essentially disappears for a couple weeks, even as he starts to kind of get hot again, and he might have been playing relatively sparingly in those days, you don't realize it quite as much.
That's a good point.
And, one thing to remember though, keep an eye on this, because I know for like the last 3 years and the last couple of years, both the AL and the NL Central for the last 3 years and AL Central for the last couple of years has been a very good place for left-handed hitters to hit. Not many left-handed starters. So if you're going to be a righty masher, I'm not sure if it's still the same way in the AL Central. I know it is in the NL Central. There are just not a lot of staffs with lefties. So if you're going to be a platoon guy like that, those are good leagues. And I kind of like Jock Peterson going to the Cubs. That was a good place, at least as far as facing a lot of right-handers. The AL or the NL West is not a great place for left-handed bats if you don't hit left-hander as well. And Schwarber going to Washington, believe it or not, even though went from Chicago to Washington, the NL East is also kind of right-handed heavy, and it's a better ballpark to hit in for lefties. So, but just a touch.
That makes sense. Also, Akil Baddoo, 4 hits, 4 versus left-handers, and they're all singles.
Yeah, so pretty. I thought I saw something where he wasn't even playing against them. But
yeah, that would make sense. And you're right, though. Danny Duffy comes to mind. Lefties. Jay Happ's in there. There's a couple lefties.
Rodon and
of course,
and Keuchel. But that's 4 that we've named off the top of our heads out of the other 4 staffs. There's probably one we're missing in there. But are you too worried about Jay Happ?
I'm terrified. Actually, Jay Happ had a nice little start for me on Sunday. I streamed him, and he was great against Cleveland's offense, which can be awful at times. But then You know, they're only 2.5 games behind the White Sox, so who the hell knows? Anyways, that's the latest edition. You guys did it. It was fun. We played a round of Name That Runner-Up Fab Bid. We got it in the books. I'm very happy we did it. I'm Michael Govier. I am Michael Govier. I have been and continue to be Michael Govier. He's Paul Mammino, and he's Crosby Spencer, and you should be following them. They're all from Rotofanatic.com. All three of us, we all run Rotofanatic.com with Carm and Matt and Mr. Doctor and Michael Richards, Davey Funnel, and Phil Goyette. There's so many wonderful people there. Rotofanatic.com. It's a fun place to be, and it's a great place to learn a thing or two. So make sure you're following Paul and Crosby on Twitter, P. Mammino Fantasy, Crosby Spencer, numerical 1, and I'm MJ Govier, G-O-V as in Victor, I-E-R. All right, this is called Would You Rather. I love Would You Rather. I like to play it with booze, preferably. I'm sure Crosby's played some Would You Rather with some drinks. It's happened, right?
A little spin the bottle, a little would you rather. Have you ever?
Ooh. Yeah. Oh,
will you
you're
tonight?
getting racy. A little bit of truth or dare now. Okay, yeah. Let's do it. 3 guys. Let's have a good time.
You were talking about the past, my friend, the past.
I was, yeah. We had some good times, me and some fellas. I won't deny. Would you rather rest? Nothing wrong with that at all. Would you rather rest of season? So it's real simple. I'll give you 2 names. You just tell me rest of season. Would you rather have one or the other? Now, I don't care how you look at it and you think, well, these aren't good comparisons. It's not about that. I just want to know. And I think the audience would like to know based on some of the information I've received from you people who connect with the show. PlazzoPodcast@protonmail.com or DM us at Plazo Podcast 2 L's 2 Z's. So, would you rather rest of season?
Utah, give me 2.
Garrett Cole or Clayton Kershaw? Crosby, I'm going to you first. Cole or Kershaw rest of season? Is this even a debate?
Well, it shouldn't be, right? If you had asked this 2 weeks ago, it would be a hands down Garrett Cole. He's had some really rough outings. The whole thing with the spider tack and the spin rates, and it's shown up, and his performance has gone down. I am still, and this hasn't really impacted Kershaw too much. I haven't seen what his spin rates have been, but he's maintained good performances. I'm still going to go ahead and stick it out with Cole. But
Wow.
I definitely there is something to worry about. But I would not trade Cole for straight up in that deal for Kershaw. So I would go ahead and hold on to Cole.
Kershaw had 13 strikeouts in a recent start. Looked amazing. What about you, Paul?
I think it's closer, like Crosby said, than we thought it was going to be. But I think I'm still going to take my chances with Cole. I think right now he gave up 3 home runs against Boston on Sunday, and that kind of sticks. It's going to stick in a lot of people's minds. I think that the worry for him might end up being a little bit overblown. I think he's kind of become, and at least last year he did it with the Yankees too. He does give up some home runs, and it's almost kind of by design. Some of the better pitchers in baseball, they're kind of okay with giving up home runs every once in a while. They're not too worried about it as they go for strikeouts. I think that you definitely have to temper your expectations for him. I think, you can move him. He might not be a top 2 starter like we thought he was going to be the rest of the season, but I think I'd still kind of take my chances with him over Kershaw.
Well, it kills my RotoWire OC. I took him with my first pick. I really thought it was legitimate to do that. It was. And I think I had the 4th or 5th overall pick. And didn't know baseball was going to meddle in the middle of the goddamn season. So
I think that guys potentially like him. I mean, he might he's probably going to be in the All-Star game. But guys that can have like an extra couple days to skip, not necessarily skip a start, but maybe even throw like an extra bullpen session. I really think that that's going to kind of benefit some of these guys. I think overall we're not going to see a huge. I've kind of said in a few places I think we're going to move pitching down as a whole. Some guys might move up and down in a tier, but for the most part, your elite guys are still going to be your elite guys. There might be some more impact to a guy like Cole, a guy like Bauer. There's going to be some guys that are impacted slightly more, but I still think eventually these guys are too talented to not be able to pitch well still.
I think Kershaw's the guy. I really do. And I think there's a serious mental issue going on here for Cole. It's not just physical. It's the mental part. And, Crosby, Paul, you know this too. You pitched. Yeah. You guys know the mental part of the game is important. If you lose confidence, that's what I'm thinking about. And, after we've seen the interviews where he blanks off into space for 10 seconds and then he's pissed and now he's not pitching as well, I could see it snowballing. I really can. So I'm really worried about that. I feel like Kershaw Never changed. Kershaw's been who he's been. He's been around the block a million times. I mean, they're basically the same age, too. I believe Kershaw's
33. I think Cole's 30.
31. I think Cole's 31, or he'll be 31. Okay. Yeah, so maybe it's not that close, but it's closer than you might think. All right. I won't argue about it, but I'll take Kershaw. I really will.
Who's the quote unquote worst pitcher you would take over Cole?
Like someone who's less than lower ranked. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's say you have
Corbin
Kershaw
Burns.
10. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That seems right. Yeah. That's probably an area I'd be fine with being.
I take Woodruff.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would take both of those guys. I guess maybe Burns has the same problem or same concern for me as Kershaw. That I think if you're betting on innings rest of season, both of those guys might not get as many innings as Cole gets. That's the only main concern. I think that's the big difference. I think on a per inning basis, you could see Kershaw being better, but I think Cole will end up with more Ks just strictly because he's going to throw more innings.
Well, we'll talk about that in our last segment because I want to talk about that. All right, next one. Keston Hiura or Alberto Mondesi? Paul, we'll start with you first. Hiura or Mondesi? Seems like a no-brainer. Maybe it's not. What do you think?
Oh, man. I guess Hiura because he's healthy and in the big leagues currently. I don't necessarily think that he's going to put up, insane. He could put up insane numbers still, but I think Mondesi's looked awesome when he's been healthy. It's just
he does.
He's not healthy. So I think that I'm taking the guy that's healthy and playing over the guy that we don't know when he's coming back.
Crosby, what do you think on this one?
I'm going to go Mondesi simply because if he's in there, I mean, let's say he doesn't play a game the rest of the year. Obviously, you're screwed. But here, I mean, he may be back down in the minors in 2 weeks. I don't think so. I think he's going to get his bearings and have a decent second half. However, is he going to have a better second half than Jonathan Scope or you're not missing that much by missing Keston. But I think if Mondesi does get back on the field sometime after the All-Star break and is Mondesi, I mean, that is a league winner right there. So I'm going to take Mondesi.
I mean, his 2020 ranking was pretty much just his end of season ranking was like 2 weeks essentially. He went
pretty much.
Yeah. He went off for the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he'd stolen bases all year, but he definitely would have. He's a guy who can be the best player in fantasy for a month stretch at a time. I definitely don't disagree with you. I think we've just seen too many little nicks and bruises for him here that I think it's just kind of become a thing.
There's a real chance he doesn't play. I mean, there's a real chance he barely plays the rest of the season. That could totally happen. Yeah. But I think Keston, there's a chance that he is less than league average. I think he's better than that. But I also didn't think he was going to go to the minors twice this year. So, I don't know exactly how much we're going to miss him. But I'm willing to take that high upside top 10 player in the game gamble.
Yeah. 100%.
That is so fetch.
I think it also depends on where you are in your stand. Like,
yeah,
it's a cop out
context basis.
Yeah. If you're leading, then you probably are okay with having Mondesi sit on your bench and take your chances with him because he could guarantee you the win.
Yep. Yep. And this goes back to our commentary, Cole versus Kershaw. Derek Schaefer says Darvish over Cole too. Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. Would you guys agree? Darvish over Cole?
Yeah. I think if you're worried about, I guess it's just how much faith you put into this stuff. I think Darvish is a guy who should probably pitch as many innings as Cole going forward, probably plays on a better team, more of a chance of getting wins. I can definitely see that argument.
I would still stick with Cole. I'm a fan of Darvish. I have him rostered on a few leagues, including a longtime keeper league. His swing and strike rate down is down a bit this year. It's down around 13%. He's typically more of a 16% guy. That's small. That's a small thing, but he's 34 now. Garrett Cole, throwing 97, 15% strike rate. The guy has been an absolute stud. And when you talk about Corbin Burns, he's also someone whose spin rates have been down big time. It hasn't impacted him that much, too much so far. But I'm not gonna go too far into the spin rate thing with Garrett Cole. He's down to very similar spin rates that he had his first year with Houston. And I seem to remember that was a pretty good year for him. So
The Great Spin Rate Panic of 2021.
Good call, Cross. Fair enough. By the way, guys, you guys getting the notification here? 7 innings in the books. No hitter so far for German Marquez. All right.
At Seattle,
too, right? Or
at Seattle or at Cleveland?
no, I think it's Pittsburgh.
It's the Rockies and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
The Vicksburg in the Pittsburgh.
The other team that's been no hit, right? Texas was the other one that's been no hit multiple times.
The Pirates were no hit last year by Giolito, so that's true. Are they in Pittsburgh? Do we know this? Or are they? No way, they're.
It's in Colorado.
Oh wow!
What?
Coors.
Get the hell out of here! That's fucking amazing. That's even shit. If it goes to the 9th inning, I'm gonna bring it up on the TV.
Didn't Jimenez throw 1 or 2 there?
Ubaldo? Good old Ubaldo.
He had a hell of a season there that one year, but
15-1.5, which was bizarre for win-loss. It looks amazing, but I bet if we were focused more on StatCast like we are now back then, we would have realized there was a lot of bullshit going on with that. So, but whatever, because he went to Baltimore and he could never ever replicate any of that. No. Anyways, you don't care about Ubaldo Jimenez. You care about our next comparison. Would you rather? We're doing Would You Rather rest of season. Alex Reyes, who has been an absolute steal for a lot of people who drafted him. I mean, amazing. He never blows a save. It's incredible. Or Craig Kimbrell, who has also been amazing and has not really let anybody down. In fact, he's been way above and beyond what a lot of people expected, though his ADP was higher than Reyes's. Who's up first this time? Crosby, we'll go to you again. Alex Reyes of the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'll go Kimbrell. This guy's been in this position and a stud for a long time. He's obviously had a hiccup here and there, but he looks good this year. He's been a closer for 8-9 years, it seems like. I'm definitely going to go with him. He's dependable. I'm not sure if there's nobody to take his job. So I'm going to go with Kimbrell.
Kimbrell's been a closer for a good 10 years. He had 46 saves in 2011. So he's been doing this a long time. That's true. Well said. What about you, Paul?
Too many walks for me with Reyes, so I'll go Kimbrell. It's kind of boring, but the walk rates are just insane, and you can't keep. He's been getting really lucky, kind of getting away with that stuff, and I just don't foresee it kind of staying. Plus, when it comes down to kind of team context, I think the Cubs are a little bit better than the Cardinals, so they're going to be in a little more chances for wins, a little more chances for saves, kind of things like that, which is kind of important for your closer if they actually have opportunities. So I think that those kinds of two things put together, I'm gonna take my chance with Kimbrell.
Right now, 2.97 walks per 9 for Kimbrell. This is the lowest walks per 9 he's had since 2017. So, if that happens the second half, that's great news too. And the home runs per 9 are minuscule. They don't exist right now, which I feel like that's got to go up a little bit because it's at 0.3, which is...
Yeah, I mean, those kinds of things definitely tend to balance out. But at the same time, as long as he's not walking guys if he gives up some home runs but isn't walking guys, then that's a lot easier to kind of handle.
And he's doing that while home runs are up pretty big. Not only for the Cubs, I looked at it also in for the White Sox as well. So obviously there's something weather-wise going on there in Chicago, and it hasn't hit him at all.
It's always weather-related. That's what we learned on this podcast. I love it. Victor, maybe this one's goofy, but I thought it was an interesting comparison. Victor Robles or Mark Canha, who at the time when he got hurt with the hip strain, went on the IL last Friday. 55 runs scored, one of the best in baseball at scoring runs. Paul, is this a obvious call? It's Canha because he'll be healthy, or are you genuinely concerned about a hip issue?
I love Canha. I had him in a bunch of places, and
me too.
He was scoring an insane amount of runs. Something I didn't really see coming, and he was getting on base a ton. One of the weird things though is that I think he's walking a lot. So in like traditional roto leagues, his average isn't as great as his on base percentages, even though he's scoring a ton of runs. He was stopped. He didn't really run a lot even before he was running early in the year, and then he kind of stopped. I think that the Athletics as a whole kind of slowed down. Laureano had 10 in the first 2 weeks or something just insane early on going on there, and they were running a lot. And then it's kind of died down, but I still think going forward, I'd much rather have him than Robles. He's going to hit leadoff when he comes back. Robles is not. So I think I'm just going to take my chances with Canna.
And the cat agrees. I also drafted Mark Canna like a motherfucker. I was all in. I believed in what I've seen from him, and especially in OBP leagues. My home league's OBP, I'll admit that, but in almost, I think 7 out of the 12 NFBC teams I did, I was heavy on him. I just thought he would lead off because everyone kept saying Ramon Laureano's going to lead off, and it didn't come to pass by spring training. So, Cross, what do you think here? Victor Robles, he's healthy again. He's back on the field. He hit a home run today. I don't know if that's fun, but would you do that?
No, I'd stick with Canna for right now. Robles, I've never really liked his batting profile. This year he's walking a bit, and he had 17 home runs or something back in I think 2019. But man, he doesn't hit the ball hard. He's not batting at the top of the lineup. I currently have him as as an expected basically bench bat. So, in Canada, I have something on expected full season with what he's done so far in a good lineup, hitting towards the top of the lineup. It's something more like a top 45 to 50 hitter. So, yeah, I'd stick with Canada right now.
There was the most recent update on his injury was positive too. I think they said they don't expect him to miss much more than the minimum. So I think that's a good thing for him. But he might not run, but I think he's going to still lead off when he comes back and score a ton of runs.
That's a good call. A couple more. We're done here. Tony Gonsolin or Albert Alzolay? Albert Alzolay of Chicago Cubs has been pretty darn good. He had a blister issue, which slowed him down a bit, but that slider has really taken off this year. Tony Gonsolin, shoulder struggles early on, wasn't ready to go, but now he's active. First couple of starts weren't so great, a lot of walks, but his last start was pretty promising. 7 strikeouts, kept whoever the hell he was pitching against in check. Paul Mammino, I'm going back to you. Would you rather have rest of season?
I'll take Gonsolin. Better team, better chance of wins. He might not throw more than 5 every time he goes out, but he's shown that he's got some pretty serious skills from what we've seen from him in his short big league time. So I'll go with him if I'm going with the 2, because I also think there's a chance we might see Alzolay get a few more Brandon Mael stints here or skipping starts and kind of limiting innings going forward. So I'll take Gonsolin.
You read my mind. What about you, Crosby? What do you think here?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Gonsolin. I liked him coming into the season. I think in our last podcast, I was high on him and AJ Puck. The AJ Puck part has paid 0 fruit. And Gonsolin hasn't pitched, particularly well so far. But that's quite all right. But I know the talent is there. I think that Gonsolin reminds me a bit of Zach Gallen. And Alzolay, even before this last start, I had Alzolay with an expected ERA more like the mid-4s than what he was pitching. And he I think he brought it up to that after that last start. Yeah, I had him at an expected ERA of 4.66, an expected whip of 1.18 versus his 4.19 and 1.03. Decent strikeout rate, good walk rate. He's pitching more than 5 innings per start, but he gives up the long ball. He's got an expected 4.7 home run rate, which is high, let you know. And he's also given up that 4.7. So it's fully earned. I don't expect any regression there. He hasn't pitched this much in the majors. So, and he's I would go with Gonsolin. I think he's got more upside, and I think his second half is going to have more innings than Alzolay as well.
Yeah, it's very strange for Alzolay. He's not given up more than 4 earned runs in any outing this year. He has not. But he's got a 4.55 ERA, which means he's given up 4 runs several times. So
right.
Okay.
I have him rostered. He's like my sixth pitcher in a number of leagues, and he hasn't really had a blow up except for this one against the Dodgers wasn't kind, but he's been perfectly serviceable. I like him as a number 6 pitcher, but I think Gonsolin could be a 3 or 4.
I agree. You're right. I do like him too. I like both these guys really, so that's why I was curious. Alzolay has given up at least 2 home runs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this year. 5 different starts. That's not great. So that does allude to what Crosby was talking about. Next up is, and finally, Alec Bohm, or not Craig, Kevin Biggio. That's right. Kevin Biggio or Alec Bohm rest of season. Crosby, you're going to start it off.
All right. I haven't looked at these two guys very much at all.
So I assume you don't like either one.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That lineup is so nice. So I'm going to go with Biggio. He has not done anything so far this year to deserve it. He's kind of earned his crappy stats. But I did like him in the minors. I think there's room for improvement. The ballparks he's playing in, that lineup, if I'm going to take a stab at one of those two guys, I'll go with Biggio.
Mr. Mammino.
I liked Biggio a lot this year. I think that he's a really interesting guy, mainly because mainly just because of
he's a really interesting guy.
Everything that he does is just so unique, right? Like he's extremely patient. He strikes out a ton. He walks a ton. Hits a good amount of balls in the air. He's just like a really, really weird player. But I think that what he's done so far, I guess it's kind of going back to Crosby's thing. He's been hurt a lot this year. Bohm's just kind of been struggling to an extent, and I think that Toronto lineup around him is a little bit better chance for RBIs, better chance for scoring runs. So I'll give it to him. But if you need average, you want Bohm. If you need counting stats, I guess you can go with Biggio. They're kind of a toss up to me.
That's a ringing endorsement, folks, right there. Woohoo!
You're a lousy fucking softball player.
We don't know. We can't prove that. I don't know. I've never seen him play softball, frankly. But either way, there it is. Would you rather rest of the season from Paul and Crosby in the can? Now it's time for our final segment. We'll get the hell out of here. And by the way, 8 innings in the books. No hits. 1 inning to go. So when the 8th inning ends, we go to the 9th. I'm going to pull that sucker up here, and we'll see it in real time. This could be the second real-time no-hitter we've had on the show this season, which says all kinds of things about this season. Corey Kluber, that was the other one. It was now no longer relevant, unfortunately. That's fucking crazy. Okay, so now we're getting to it. What I labeled this title as, I've made a huge mistake. So I want to help you guys out here.
I've made a huge mistake.
There's a lot of people like Paul and myself who are struggling in our main events. Other people like you out there. You're not alone. You're trying to get out of the lower end of the bracket of your league. Forget overall. Let's just try to win the league. I want to know, what can we do? What kind of strategies can we implement? And I have a couple of things I've been thinking about as kind of overarching themes related to these strategies. But let's start with Roto. 12 and 15 teamers. If there's a difference between a 12 and 15 teamer you want to offer, please do go ahead, because so far people have made a bunch of mistakes.
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah, we got it. And there's a lot of ways that you could still turn it around. It's only late June. In Roto leagues, you still have July, August, and September all the way to the end. So there's 3 months minus the All-Star break available. So, Paul, let's start with you here. Roto concepts, a strategy that could be useful to kind of change the game right now?
I think we're at a point where you have to evaluate where you are in categories and where you are in standings and where there's the most place for you to actually move. Because I have a few teams where at a team with Mondesi, and again, you don't have as many steals as you thought you were going to have. So early on, I'm kind of trying to pick up some guys who might chip in a couple steals and try to move me back up. But it's gotten to a point where you're so far behind that, even getting a 5-steal week from a guy isn't going to move you up in the category. So instead of using, a spot on a guy who's more of a rabbit type of player, you want to use your last bench, or you want to start kind of chasing some of the other categories that you actually have space to move up in. I don't think there's a huge difference between 12 or 15 for Roto. I think it's kind of the same regardless. You just kind of want to do it almost every week you want to take a look at where you are in categories, where you are in the standings, and where you actually have place to move, because you're not going to go from a high 4s ERA if you've struggled that much there, and really kind of overtake and make your way back up to the top. So if you're struggling in a ratio category, you might want to start loading up on starts and try to get wins and try to get Ks, because you might actually be able to move up and kind of get yourself back into those spots.
That's a good call. Crosby, what about you? Any thoughts for 12 or 15 team roto leagues that could help?
Well, so if you're obviously trades if you can, but if you're looking at just strategy, because free agents, man, it seems like after the end of May, free agents kind of dry up a bit. But I would definitely be looking at 2-start pitchers. I'm kind of punting ratios if I can, and trying to get the counting categories of the wins and the Ks, paying attention to lineup placements, seeing if guys are moving up on, looking at the box scores, seeing if guys are hitting the top of the lineup now where they were hitting 6th earlier in the season. Just try to get these little edges. I know at the All-Star break also, I'll go through and I'll map out. Obviously the rotations don't stay exactly the same, but I'll map out and I'll look at what the matchups are, and I'll make a deal for a guy that otherwise might be even or a little bit lesser of a pitcher. I'll acquire that guy based on if he's got a lot better matchups coming up. You're just trying to get every little edge that you can, and you're getting those edges by volume, by healthy players, by volume, by getting guys more up towards the top of the lineups. Your volume by 2-start pitchers. And I would take a look and see maybe if you can get some, if you want to play the ratios game and try to improve in Ks or WHIP, or if you have like a K per 9 type of league, look and see those relievers that teams are pitching in those extra inning scenarios, because now that we're putting a guy on second base, there's relievers getting a lot of cheap wins, and see if teams are deploying consistently guys for that 10th inning, et cetera, to see if you can pick up some stuff there. That would be some of my suggestions.
Genius, genius, genius,
dude! You just hit on something. I'm gonna go to it now. By the way, before I say it, has there ever been a no-hitter at Coors, guys? True or false?
I think there has been.
I believe there has been. Was it Mike Witt?
No, it's not Mike Witt. I remember Mike Witt, though. But you were both right. There was one no-hitter, and it was in 1996 at Coors Field. Nope.
Coors.
I don't think you guys will get this, unless if you don't have it, if you could Google it, but I'll tell you. The answer is the one and only Dodger, Hideo Nomo. How about that? He did it. The only guy to ever throw a no-hitter at Coors Field, at least until this evening. It's 2 outs in the 8th. Oh boy, it's coming up. I'm excited for this 9th inning. But you just hit something big time for me, Kraz. I don't know if I should be telling this, but I do a show. I mean, it's like Matt says, you got to talk straight, you got to give away all your secrets, and you still have to win. That's what this job is. I think I agree with him for the most part. You could be a little strategical about what you say, but in the end, if you're going to ask me an opinion, I'll never back down from it. And I've been picking up guys like Seth Lugo and Colin McHugh to even out my ratios, get me wins, sometimes 1 or 2 wins a week. Hell, even Lugo snuck in a save recently. And I'm really liking these types of guys. Also, because I have innings pitched fears. So, do you like the strategy? And tell me what you think about innings pitched fears going forward. Paul, we'll go back to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an understanding kind of, again, where you have places to move, right? If you're relatively high up in Ks, you can afford to use some of those guys. And honestly, a lot of times if they do throw 2 or 3 times, they're getting as many Ks as a lot of starters would, right? You're getting maybe 4 to 6, depending on how many they throw, maybe more depending on the week. And you probably have a chance at garnering some wins. If you're trying to make moves in ratios, that's going to be a lot slower. of a pace because you're just not, racking up enough innings to make major changes to it. But I think that it's definitely a strong strategy to take. Again, as if you can kind of see that maybe innings pitch, maybe you're in an okay spot in ratios, you just haven't quite gotten the Ks and the innings and the wins, and you might be trying to sneak in a few for sure. I think it's a solid approach.
What do you think, Roz?
Well, if you're going with those type of guys, you're talking about it. You're picking up those wins or the random save here and there. Now, if you're trying to get that random save, remember if they've got all home games that week, you're probably not going to get that save. But if you're on the road, if these guys are guys that are pitching the extra innings, et cetera. So know when to deploy those guys if that's what you're looking for. But and there are leagues out there, these 6x6, et cetera, where they have K per nines and or some of these 15-team leagues where it might be 8 points separating between these ratios. That you can catch in the second half of the season. So it's your scenario, it's your situation. It's weird. I'm in a league right now or in 5 leagues right now where I'm not cemented on my ratios, but I'm like a quarter point either way on ERA in some of these, and so I'm looking at the volume and trying to get the wins and the Ks and really strategize. Not just gonna. Now who's gonna have just the what?
Sorry.
Hit.
There goes. Yeah. First batter of the 9th inning, base hit to right field. Buzzkill. Sorry to interrupt you, but there it is. The no-no is over. He had 5 strikeouts and 1 walk, by the way.
And always remember, don't just go for the guys that you're looking at 2 starts this week. Yeah, strategize for the guys that are going to have 2 starts a week from now. So that you're not paying top of the dollar on fab money and things of that nature. So,
I wonder how much this is going to boost German Marquez's trade value now. This is good news for the Rockies, right?
Yes, and it's good news for him because he'll be out of course.
Yeah,
Coors.
Yeah, that's a good call. Okay, so it didn't work out. So close, but still, that'll up his value. Right now, somewhere, Jeff Burdick is smiling, I bet. Maybe not. I don't know. He's probably drunk somewhere and depressed, I would think. I don't really like Jeff Burdick, so fuck him. Okay, so that's great stuff, man. This inning pitch thing's got me. I'm very concerned about it. And the guys like Corbin Burns and Carlos Rodon and all these guys that are blowing past what they did last year and really haven't done in a few years, depending on the pitcher, I think this is a major concern. I've been waving the flag about it for the last few weeks. And some people are saying, well, it's fair to kind of be ahead of it and think about it. Other people are saying, well, this is all of the teams are in this together. So they're all going to be expanding, going beyond the reach of their typical limits.
Well, I'm worried about it, right? I'm worried about the innings pitch thing, right? This is unprecedented, okay?
Yes.
However, these teams aren't being run by Manfred, and these teams these are billion-dollar franchises, and some of these front offices are pretty damn good at what they do. And I'm thinking we don't know what these teams did during the season at the alternative sites in the off season. They had some time to go through this. I'm imagining they've got some pretty good doctors and people that they can consult. I'm pretty sure they've got a strategy in place to have built up their innings. That is my hope. I don't think they come into this blind, but maybe in September it's just the minor league AAA guys pitching. But I think they've addressed this in the off season and worked with doctors and trainers and people in the know on how to be able to get through a full season.
I also think it's relatively interesting. We haven't seen a lot of. You would think you would start skipping some of these guys' starts now.
Phantom IL stuff too.
You don't want the Steven Strasburg. Like if you're the Brewers, you don't want to not have those 3 guys in come playoff time, come September, right?
Yeah, they're in first place.
You would think that they'd start skipping them earlier in the year. We might start seeing that still. Maybe we see a few coming out of the All-Star break. Maybe, his this is bothering him, and then you get 2 weeks where you miss him instead of only missing 1 or 2 starts. So I could definitely see some of those things happening. I think we're going to see it in the next month or two, as opposed to in September for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, that seems to make so much sense. We had Dr. David A. Meyer on a month ago. He worked for the Cardinals organization as a rehab medical coordinator, and he told me, he just verified what we already knew. Hell yeah, players do it, teams do it. They will exploit the IL. It could be contracts. There could be fear. There could be all kinds of weird shit going on, and anything's possible. It just got to open my eyes more to it. I've been cynical a bit about how things operate. Never been blind to it necessarily, but it's certainly, as Crosby said, this is unprecedented. We've not seen this. So I'm dying to know how it plays out. And I actually find it quite interesting. And it'll always keep me distracted at the meantime from the impending CBA disaster that is tumbling down the mountain right now. Slowly, but it's coming. That's it. I'm fucking exhausted. I've been podcasting for like 50 hours today. We covered a lot of ground here, I feel like. Is there anything else you guys want to mention there in that, or like you had lined up? Because I don't want to sell you guys short. So
I kind of alluded to it earlier, and we've talked about it. If you're struggling, you can take more chances on upside if you're lower in the thing. But at the same time, your only way to get back is going to be innings pitched. Actually getting you don't want to take too many specs, because then you're playing a guy who's only playing once a week and you're missing out on a week's worth of stats. So you've got to kind of balance the chasing upside and chasing guys who are actually playing.
Beautiful. And the key with head-to-head, real quick, we talked Roto. With head-to-head, you have even less time. You'll have a playoff, depending on your league, that could start as early as the beginning of September, depending on the size and amount of playoff teams you have. So your window is even smaller, and you might want to consider if you're, if it's cats, where you add up the cats and it's 10 cats, you're 15 games out, you might be done. You'd have to do some math too. I think some of that, like points and value that you can gain, you can literally kind of do the math too and know if you really have a chance to really make any headway.
And one of the cool things with that, on the flip side, I agree with you. It might be insurmountable, but in theory, what your guys have done before doesn't matter anymore in head-to-head and things like that, because in Roto, you're banking on if your pitchers have struggled and you have a 4 ERA, that's what you have. You have to work from a 4 ERA. In a head-to-head type of thing, you can get hot, get into a playoffs as the last seed, and you can still make a run and win. So I think there's the balance between understanding that, and I also think in leagues like that, you have to take an approach of understanding the leagues, because you can essentially punt 3 of those categories. If it's, let's say it's 10 in a head-to-head, you can trade all of your saves guys, let's say, and go after all the other categories, load up your offense, and win 7-3 every week, or 6-4 every week, and you'll slowly kind of make your way back up.
That's true. That's a great point. Good call. Cross, do you play in head-to-head leagues? I know you do, right?
No, I actually have never played head-to-head in baseball.
What?
Yeah, in baseball, I probably have about 9 to 10 head-to-head leagues per season, but never done it in baseball. When you start out in fantasy baseball in 1993, you're kind of an old school. You're playing that before there even was fantasy football. So I'm kind of an old
Roto
school
chicken style.
Yeah.
I'm down with it. I can respect that. I know Paul's played head-to-head, so. Oh, boy, what a show. I hope you guys learned something. And if you didn't learn something, then you were not paying attention. It's just that obvious. I swear, Paul and Crosby are savants. Crosby, we want to give you credit for powering through. He wasn't feeling so great, and it wasn't easy. But he did not shit his pants, as far as I know. So that's good news, right?
Cheers to our sponsor, Depends.
Oh, man, what a day. Of course, rotofanatic.com, that's what we all do. We all work to make rotofanatic.com a better website for you. And if you guys have any suggestions, you can always contact us. You can contact any of us on Twitter, P. Mammino Fantasy, Crosby Spencer 1, MJ Govier, Juvies and Victor IR, Matt Williams, Carl Majorano, anybody who's on a Rotofanatic payroll. And you can offer suggestions. Hey, I'd like to see more of this, because we're trying to give you guys what you want. We do a lot of work on the weekend with closing remarks, Fermi report, and of course the schedule factors that we discussed. So if you'd like to see any tweaks or adjustments, just share them with us, please. Hit us up. We want to give you what you want. That's the whole purpose. Anything else, Paul? Anything you want to say? Someone should know about you? Are you going to be doing any other appearances soon?
I don't think so. If anybody needs a guest for their podcast, I'm always open. So just let me know.
Yeah, it's stupid. Come on. If you haven't had Paul on your podcast, you're an asshole. Okay. Hopefully that'll motivate you to change. And the same goes for Crosby. And Crosby, Crosby's a little more bashful. Even though Crosby's not a bashful guy, he's not in real life. But and he's warmed up to the podcasting realm. So I think Crosby, you should go national, man. Take it up a notch.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
No,
get me out there. Get me on there.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to? Yeah, I'll do all the work. It's fine. I'm happy to
You're,
do that.
you're a hype guy, man. You're a
Why
hype
don't you just
guy.
be our agent? Like you can find us all the opportunities.
Yeah, maybe in a different life, I had a life as an agent. I guess I could see that, but I never believed. I'm not a good salesman. I never was because I never believed in anything that was worth selling. But
that's the problem.
Isn't it? That's always the number one issue with sales. You can't. I couldn't fake it. I could fake a lot of things, but I couldn't fake the funk on a nasty dunk, and I couldn't fake anything when it comes to sales. So that's it. Remember that we'll be back tomorrow. I got to do another show tomorrow, Wednesday. Brock Miller, Brockness Monster. He's going to talk about a lot of shit, not just baseball stuff. He actually has some interesting stories, some similarities in our past that are going to be interesting because we haven't had a chance to really unravel those with Brock. So I'm really looking forward to that. Brock tomorrow. And then I think we'll take a break. We're off because we got the 4th of July weekend. So we'll be back Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, I want to thank Crosby and I want to thank Paul. Love these guys. Really like doing the shows. And catch you on the flip side. Later.
Thanks for having us on, Mike.